All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to DevFest 2020 with GDG Singapore. As you know, this is week number 3 of our collaboration with the different community groups in Malaysia, developer space. And so for this week, we are inviting a bunch of very seasoned, very talented CEOs and senior software engineers to talk to us about how we can upskill ourselves, kind of see how things look like from their perspective, and see how we can, upskill our careers and move forward. All right. Um, let's start off with a video from our good friends at the GDG Global about what DevFest is all about.
Hello and welcome to DevFest 2020. I'm Jason Titus, VP of Engineering at Google, joining you from my home in California. Each year, we at Google truly feel the anticipation for DevFest. It's a one-of-a-kind series of developer conferences, and we're glad you can join us and the local developers within your community. Your local DevFest event this weekend is one of hundreds taking place all around the world right at this moment. And what makes DevFest truly unique is that it's run by volunteer community organizers on a mission to help other local developers grow and share a passion for Google technologies. Now, 2020 has been a year of radical change for people across the globe. But when difficult times came about, developers within this community came together online to plan a virtual DevFest where each local chapter can participate, helping each other teach and learn when we need to connect the most. And these connections can be so important. I can remember the first developer conferences I went to, where I met people who were already doing the kinds of things I dreamed of doing. They had started companies, built products, and I got to hear the stories of what had worked and what had gone wrong. And we hope that all of you will get to have similar experiences at DevFest this year. At Google, we've always believed that we're only successful when all of our users are successful. While Google and its products may plant a seed, it's developers like yourself who make the seeds grow and thrive. This community of developers has shown us firsthand how you're using technology to help each other during times of need.
All right. We'd like to, of course, say hi to our friends. Many of you who has been following us should have seen this time and again. Hello to our friends from Myanmar, Korea, Philippines, Thailand, Japan, and so on and so forth. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for signing up for this event. And we hope this would be a fantastic event for you all. Please don't forget to subscribe because the more subscribers, the better we feel. That's pretty much it. But also, it would be good to, kind of hear more from us, as we continue to stream our events live on YouTube. You can see more upcoming events, hence subscribe. All right, let's start the fun. First off, for the first segment, we will be speaking with a panel of very, very talented CEOs. And what we'll do is we're going to bring each one of them up and talk a little bit more about what they do. All right, we first start off with Ralph. Hey, Ralph. Good
Hi,
morning.
Darius. Hi, everyone who's joining us here this morning.
Would you like to tell us a bit more about Senti AI? What do you all do, and how big is your team?
Okay, so as mentioned by Julius, I'm Ralph. I'm the CEO and founder of Senti AI. So we started the organization way back in 2015. So my background, I came from the academe, working with NLP, relatively teaching computer science subjects, and jump into exploring entrepreneurship. So what we do as an organization is we guide companies on how they can use artificial intelligence solutions, and we offer them a suite of solutions and also offering services as well to implement and also integrate artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions to their IT infrastructure. So our team right now, we have at around 35 people in the team. We actually have grown during the pandemic, which is crazy. And I think our engineering team right now is at around 22 to 23 people. Yeah.
Super cool. Thanks for the introduction. Next, let's bring up Hervé from Code AI. Hi, Hervé. Morning.
Hi, Julius. How are you?
Very, very good. How are you?
Good. So
Um,
I'm Hervé. I'm the sorry. I'm
no, go
Hervé.
ahead. Go ahead. I was going to.
I'm Hervé. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CodeAI. CodeAI is a platform that generates, that converts source code into natural language, into documentation that can be searchable to help software engineers get better context when they evolve existing code. So our goal is to augment and empower software engineers to spend more time solving problems and coding. So my background is I've computer science. I've been in software engineering for the last 15 years with different roles from CTO, software engineer, software architect. Most of my career has been in the US, some of it in the Silicon Valley. Our team at CodeAI is right now 15, so we're a bit smaller than Senti, and our engineering team is 9 people.
Cool. Thank you so much for the introduction. And last but not the least, as everyone says it, we want to bring out Rio from Otify. Hello. Hi, Rio.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Julius. So I'm a CEO at a company called Otify. So Otify is an AI-powered no-code software testing automation platform. So we are automating the web application end-to-end testing. So normally, like if you want to automate the end-to-end, you need to write a Selenium or like a Cypress, those kind of frameworks. But yeah, with Otify, you don't need to write any code, and it's pretty simple. Anyone can automate your end-to-end testing, and then also AI maintains your testing scenario. So my background is I've been doing the engineering for 10 plus years, and then I actually used to work with Julius at a company called Viki in Singapore. I live in Singapore for 2 years. So I have experience in Japan, Singapore, and also San Francisco in the United States. Then, yeah, Otify, our team, we have 18 employees, and then the dev team is 10 people. Yeah, so that's us. Thanks.
All right. Super cool. Okay, cool. So now it's about time that we put our friendly CEOs in the hot seat. Quite interestingly, we have full stack CEOs around here. You know, they started as an engineer and realized that business has more money than being an engineer, and now they're CEOs. All right. So also for people who are tuning in on YouTube Live, please feel free to ask your questions as well. We will prioritize your questions from the prepared questions. And yeah, how about we start the fun and ask around? Okay, so one of the prepared questions actually says, as a CEO, what are the things that you wish product and engineering team knew about your work and the things you're dealing with? Ooh.
Maybe I can start. I prepared my answers. I think I shared with you, Julius, a while ago. Like I was like browsing all of the questions and trying to like sit it down. I think one of the things that I feel that our product or engineering team knew about my work is it's kind of like hard, especially like growing the organization, to pin down a specific requirement that a client needs and to be able to figure out that it is already this is the path that we're going to take, right? Because sometimes it's evolving, especially like during the pandemic, it completely changed and shattered all of our expectations with what client would really want, right? So I think those changes that's relatively happening from time to time is kind of hard also on the engineering side because sometimes they need they need to have structure, they need to have an understanding as to like what they need to do next. It's kind of easy if you're actually a small team, because it's easy for us to, like, to mention we need to change this, we need to change that. But if you as you grow, as you continuously grow, sometimes people tend to would want to have some point of structure. So it's kind of hard to like also figure out and balance putting structure, because you need to balance, is this what the client really needs? Do we need to really exert effort on that, or do we need to like change our strategy, figuring out what other solutions it's intended to do? It's kind of hard to balance all of those stuff. So in my head, I just need to like keep things on my head and try to make sure that whatever goes down to the engineering team is something that's sometimes already filtered from my sense. But in my head, it's still not yet completely
Mhm.
final or like final on my thoughts. So I think that's one of the challenge I constantly deal with. And probably if they had that sense of idea, those are some of the struggles they would have an idea that sometimes it would
Mhm.
definitely change.
Mhm.
Mm,
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's really difficult to like point which things that they need to know. But yeah, I think as Ralph mentioned, like I'm also trying to share what I'm thinking right now. So what we do is like sending the management weekly report to everyone. So our so myself like a CEO and CTO and COO writes what they are thinking this week and what they have done, and then share everything to the team. Then yeah, so that we can be at on the same page. Yeah, I think that's pretty important for the growing startup to make everyone on the same page. So yeah, difficult to point which they need to know, but like yeah, they need to know as much as possible what we are thinking, right?
Yeah. So I will expand on what I think Ralph said, that uh, basically, in many ways, like the business side is the opposite of engineering. There's a lot of unknowns. There's uncertainties, and I think as CEOs, we're learning. We're dealing with people, which is the opposite of machines, and they have the agenda, they have emotions, and when it's one of the things that's very hard to manage. I think one of the example recently I had is that one of our engineer asked us like, so when does the customer want to deploy? And I was like, I'm talking to like 8 people trying to agree on one date. The short answer is I don't know, and it's impossible for me to know. So I think like yeah, no, understanding that dealing with people, that's what we do, and it's the opposite of certainty, and we're learning.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Have you run into scenarios whereby, like back then when you were all software engineers, you thrive in predictability because you're working on something and it takes several weeks to get it out. But then from the business side, things keep changing. And sometimes it frustrates the product managers, the engineers when things keep changing. But then in order for the business to thrive, these changes has to be made. You need to course correct. So how do you handle this kind of interaction between you and them?
I think on my side, also a good perspective, leaning on like wearing how does the engineering think. So I think since I already have a perspective on that, I know how will they think. And on the business side, you're slowly gaining experiences on how to manage businesses. So you already have two sides of the coin that you need to balance, and balancing that is relatively critical. So I think as a CEO who has an experience on both sides, it gives a different perspective on how to balance things. And I think that's relatively crucial on how you're going to now slowly embed those information to the engineering team. So I think, as mentioned by Rio, having a constant context to them and sharing what's happening is very critical. So and sharing all of those information for them to understand what's happening also gives them a perspective that this might not be final, or this is something that can actually proceed, since they're seeing a lot of opportunities on that space. I think being vocal and being transparent as to like what's happening is also critical, and being able to manage expectations as well. Since you already know what the engineering team is expecting, you need to also balance and align with that as well.
Totally makes sense. All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, we do have a question from the audience.
Oh.
Okay, Wayne's question is, Wayne, hello. So his question is, how did you guys make the switch between a developer to a management role, and was it tough?
Yeah. Okay, can I go with this? Yeah, so I think like I have like kind of clear turning point. So so not really like a transition to management, like, you know, because like we are B2B startup, like I myself, like, you know, once I pointed out, I think like I need to be a sales. So like I used to be like an engineer, right? So I've been developing the product. So like right after I um, right after I founded this company, I myself was an engineer. I've been writing the code to build the product. But you know, once so I was in the startup accelerator called Alchemist Accelerator, which is based in San Francisco. So like during the program, like that starts from the sales. So like, you know, our, you know, the friends in the accelerator, like, you know, they sell a lot to the other customers, and then, you know, I think like I need to be a sales. So that changed my mind to like let's stop writing any code and then let's try to sell. So like my turning point starts from there. Then, you know, so after that, I'm doing pretty much everything except development. Then, you know, so first starting from the sales, and then after that, you know, customer support, then hiring, and then hand those things over to team members, and then now finally became kind of management because the team is growing. Yeah, so I think that kind of transition, it was tough because like, you know, totally, you know, changing my mind. But yeah, that's also fun.
Cool. Ralph, Hervé, do you wanna? I think
Yeah,
everyone. Yeah.
yeah, sure. I'll go. Yeah, it's tough, and I know this because I've made a lot of mistakes being a manager. It's not as it's not as straightforward because again you're dealing with people. I'm one of the mentors on Plato. I think Julius is going to join as well, where I basically mentor engineering, like senior engineers, really talented engineers to become engineering managers. And yeah, I mean, even the best engineers have a tough time becoming engineering managers. I think one of the analogy that somebody made is like, if you had the best football player like Lionel Messi, like he's not maybe the best person to become a coach. That's the very different skills. I think two mistakes I've made. One is level of control. So being very controlling about how you want engineering to still be done, even though you're not hands-on anymore. I think and I've learned to letting go and have trust in your team. That's very important. The second thing is training. So a lot of junior software engineers, there's what they know they don't know, and what they don't know they don't know, right? And it's very important to have. I mean, that's the philosophy and our culture at Quad AI to teach them about what they don't know, right? Like, and have training in place that's engaging and that not just like, hey, just figure it out, or you're an engineer, figure it out. There's things that they don't know, and that's very important to do. And so those are the two big lessons that I've learned throughout this role. But yeah, it was rough, but it's a learning experience, and as long as you improve, you're gonna be okay.
Super cool. Nice. Okay, this is the part where I sense whether Ralph wants to answer or we go to the next question.
I think I carry the same opinion to everyone. It's a rough transition. I think what rough from my side is like exploring what management really is. Sometimes you speak technical terms and people doesn't understand you. So I think that's sort of a challenge for me, like jumping it. It's more than the management. And I think sometimes you have that level of expectations that you have for yourself in just like developing things, and you expect the same as well for the people that you will also be helping you. So I think from my end, understanding that that growing the company itself needs to also like have the right people was critical for me to accept. and to be able to also hire the right people who has the same um, quality aspects of a quality mindset as I have is very critical. So I think that's one of the things that probably help and guide me through. But getting into that is like also challenging. It probably take me years to have a change of mindset. So especially for those who would also like doing the same, I think you need to accept the fact that a company is needs to grow, and you need to also accept the fact that you will be doing different things from what you're currently doing now, especially if you're coming from an engineering background. But again, you still need to still retain some of the values that you have, but you need to pick the right people to carry the same values that you do in the in engineering aspect.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Thank you so much. All right, we do have a few questions. Okay, Caleb was asking, what is a challenge or transition between moving from a development or design work to management role? I think Irvi somehow touched it, but you wanna share a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So I guess so the two things I mentioned is kind of like trusting your team, and then also understanding where their knowledge gap or the skills gap is, and where they can't figure it out on their own. So I think letting go is about trusting your hiring process, definitely, trusting that you're making the right decision, um, and sometimes obviously you'll get to a point where um, you'll wonder why something is taking a bit of more time than expected, or where are the problems. I think having a culture that's very open and safe for people to fail is important, so that you have very true transparency between you and your team, and also having the ability um, to ask the right questions, right? Asking the right questions about, it's not about like, yeah, I would have done this in half a day instead of you're taking 3 days. It's like, what is the actual problem? What is the bottleneck? Like, where are you getting stuck on? And asking the right question. And then, many times and I'm very proud of that, I was like, why is, I mean, in my head, I was like, it should have taken, half the time. But I asked questions to my engineers, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. And I'm very proud when those moments happen. On training, it's critical. I mean, I think it's like, there are some, like, training is about investing on the long term. So we have an internal training that we do on engineering, about going to very like fundamental concepts that people may not know about. Like, if you look at, for example, database isolation, like a lot of people use database and just throw SQL queries, don't think about indices and things like that. Like, going to the fundamentals is very important when they make, for example, decisions, right? Another one that we did a recent training on is, how do you choose the right technology? Like, is there any big difference between MySQL and Postgres? Like, or, why did you pick Mongo? Why did you pick Elasticsearch? It's not a, if somebody's going to pick something, if you give that to a junior software engineer, they don't, it's hard for them to explain. You need to explain and teach how you do that. What's the process? What are you thinking about? And that's very important. So I think those are two things that, in the first 5 years of me being a manager, I didn't do at all, and I had a really bad time. And it's all understandable if you're not having a hard time as well. It takes a lot of time and experience to become a good manager.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Leo,
Sure.
Ralph, wanna chip in?
Yeah. I think the biggest difference from developers to management role is like, as me being a developer, like I'm just taking care of like what I'm writing, right? So, and I kind of like design my own feature or something. But like a management role, we need to design the organization itself. Then yeah, so my role is kind of like a need to like always like see the overall picture of the organization, and then identify what is actually, how to say, uncovered area, like identify the uncovered area, or like what's missing in the process or something like that. So I wanted to give you some example that, like, the early days of the Otify, like we've been really focusing on the building a new feature, but so we actually had a lot of inquiries from the customers. Then the customer problem has been there for like 2 months or 3 months, and then I feel that like a customer satisfaction is like going down. So like the development team is like looking at the building a feature for new users, but the CS, like a customer success support team, is looking at their existing customer to success, but that problem has been there for a long time. So I think that is the kind of like, a really serious problem as a organization. So I totally redesigned the process, and then told everyone that we should save the existing customer, not the new feature. So like kind of like deciding the direction, what kind of like things that we need to do and then what not to do. So that is the biggest difference, and then also like a really difficult thing as a management, I think.
Totally. All right. Cool. Uh, all right. I think we have quite a lot of questions now, actually. Hey, Caleb. Wow. Okay. Caleb is asking, do you all miss doing technical work?
Uh,
Shall we go
I
to Ralph? Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, doing technical work. Yes, I think on my side, since my prior to like building the company, relatively doing a lot of research on NLP, and since my background is like more on the academe side, so definitely miss all of the exploration revolving around the research aspect of how to build things and how to push the boundaries of like the technology itself and reading a lot of papers. I think that's what I miss. And sometimes if you try to miss, you have that at the back of your head that do am I still like knowledgeable or on an expert on that space, because I don't know anything. I don't know what's new in the field now. So I think at some point I all the time I actually like always on the crossroads of like figuring it out. So I on my head I usually like try to still read upon a lot of new subscribe to newsletters or read what are new trends in the technology itself. But just a transition of that. So definitely you will reach a point that yes, you will definitely miss it, but you still need to figure it out and balance that. If you're going to do this, is it like relatively um, how would it impact the company, or is it really the intention of your time? Is it more of like if you do the management, how would it affect? If you do the technical, how would that affect the entire company? So it's definitely a change of like focus that you need to still accept along the way. So it would definitely be up to the speed that you would want that transition to happen, or it would be relatively a slow transition. It's relatively up to you as to which transition you would want to like pursue. But for me, it's relatively understanding that I need to focus a lot of my effort now on management to help the company grow, and still a percentage of my time to learn new things so that I can keep up with the new trend. I think as developers and as engineers, we need to continuously like learn. I think that's what's continuous on our field. So that shouldn't be exempted for us like to stop learning.
Cool. Irving?
Yes, I definitely miss it, and I code on the weekend to just catch up. I think one of the fun thing that actually back when I was in the Silicon Valley, I don't know if there's this term in Asia called the ivory tower architect. No, okay. Anyway, so basically, there's like when I was promoted to software architect, he told me like you don't want to be an ivory tower architect, meaning like the guy that designs the architecture of the system from his own office and never talks to people, right? So I think like that I'm the opposite of that. I like to be hands on. I like to understand. I like to have real conversation with my engineers. I don't want to be disconnected, right? There's a trust factor for sure, but then, like I said, like if you want to be able to ask the right questions, you need to understand the language, and you need to understand the technology. You need to understand the pros and cons of certain technology. You don't have to go into details. I think one of the very important things is being very smart about how you focus your learning and how you learn about certain technology, right? So there's new technology, but then it's never really new. It's always like a combination of an evolution of different new technologies. So you look at Google Spanner, for example. Well, it's like you look at the cap theorem. You look at acid properties. It does fulfill some of those properties differently that maybe Mongo or Cassandra. But you need to understand that you don't need to actually use it. So
Totally makes sense. All right. Cool. Okay, we have another question. Okay, hi, Waiho. Waiho says, okay, when it comes to people hiring, as a hiring manager, what qualities will you be looking out for from potential candidates?
Mhm. So yeah, I can go with that. So yeah, when hiring, like we have designed the hiring process, like starting from the building the value. So like we have like frequently review our value, like maybe once in a year or something, and then yeah, so we have like a clear like a three values, and then like divided into like a three categories in the other one value as well. Then like first of all define like what kind of people itself are we are looking for, not the other technical skills. Then like so then also like of course we write the job description, right? And then what kind of like skills that we are looking for. Then like design the kind of like what we should ask to test those skills, and then also personality from the values. Then we design the okay, so the HL session, like we mainly ask the personality, and then we have the technical session. We basically ask the skills, and like then so we actually look at a lot of like qualities in the candidates from the personal perspective as well as the skill perspective, and then that values a lot like not only hiring the engineers but also like when to hire the sales. We also look at the technical skills, and yeah, so that kind of things that what we do for the hiring.
Nice, thank you. Looks like a very, very holistic the way you see it. Thank you. Um,
I can jump in here. I think like Joel Spolsky from the co-founder of Stack Overflow said it best. Smart, get things done. Basically, don't overthink, don't over-engineer. I think the one thing we add at our company is empathy, meaning caring. I think it's important that at least for us, not at all companies, that the people we hire are care about other people. They care about the coworkers. They care about the customer, and they care about the product. Because that's the finishing touch that puts like excellence into what we do.
Yeah, I think
nice.
from our side, this carries the same thing as what Rio and Hervé mentioned, that relatively the culture of the organization is critical. In terms of alignment of which people do you think you're going to go let in the organization itself, because it would definitely have an impact towards the rest of the people that you will be hiring. So I think to be frank, I'm relatively hands-on when it comes to hiring, because I need to make sure that we get to hire the right people, and I need to make sure that I got to also transfer that to the hiring managers that we're going to hire also, to understand what's the hiring process. And I think it's a learning process to every organization as to like which hiring process that they need to actually build. And it's not just that you need to follow a strategy from this organization. So you need to actually experiment your way as to what works for your organization, and it's a learning experience also. So I learned a lot of like just simply talking about hiring. It would definitely be a topic on my head, and even if they're relatively good candidates, we have experienced that even if they're good candidates, as long as they are not aligned to your values, they definitely would not fit. And to be able to also understand your immediate needs, and aligning it to the right people also is very critical. So I think it's an alignment to what the organization needs now and what the key people that you will be hiring to help you aid in that problem. Sometimes, if I'm hiring for key people, I usually like ask them, here are the challenges of our organization. How do you help us? So I think me being transparent about what's happening in the organization is a key for me to understand how they can actually aid the organization for growing. So I think
Yeah, totally makes sense. Cool. All right. Okay, the next question. Okay, Arifin is asking, what certificates to be considered if you want to become a managed. So I think what he's asking is if I want to become a C-suite, CIO, CTO, or a manager, like what kind of certificates do I need to have? Like
I
blood,
don't have
tears, and sweat.
I don't have
Difficult
any
question.
certificates. I don't have any certificates. I just like learn from all of the founders of the books and podcasts that I'm listening. So if there's a certification that you finish a podcast, then definitely that would be. But I don't have any. I'm not quite sure with Rio and Herbie, maybe they can add more input into that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
so I don't have any certificate either. I do have 2 degrees in computer science, but I will say that my go-to book that actually I recommend on Plato, and Plato always recommend, is High Output Management by the former Intel CEO. It's a great book on management. It's almost everything that you need to know. I constantly reread it, and I constantly recommend it to everybody that I know. High Output Management. I will tell that a lot of to people who are interested in going to CTO architecture or management, is that there's a big misconception that it's like, an amazing role, but you actually get less technical as you go on. So that's something to keep in mind. Even as an architect, like, you don't get as much time to think about all the technical details and really get hands-on as much as you want. So just beware.
Yeah. I would say like this is like like becoming the manager or a C-suite, like it's all learning process. So like you need to be like a kind of self-grown type of people. So I start from nothing, like I was just a developer, then gradually becoming the kind of management role. So like yeah, you need to be enjoy learning new things, and then you should be like openly get adapted into the new environment. I think that's the only requirement, maybe. Yeah,
Cool.
Thanks for the recommendation, Herbie, for the book. Yeah, I'll
that's a
be
great
reading
book.
that.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah,
read
yeah.
that. I think what I read is like the Measure What Matters, which also mentions Andrew Grove. So I think it's one of the book that I was able to like read and grasp to understand like how OKR, how performance are measured. So
Nice. All right. Cool. Okay. No certificates. No certificate for engineering humans, I guess. Okay. Next question. All right. Oh, very good question here. So the question is, do you have a coach or mentor that you can turn to for help? No. Okay. Next
I do.
question.
Yes.
Kidding.
So yes. I actually have more than just one. I think at least in the US, it's very easy to. It's more in the culture to admit that you don't know something and that you need to learn, and it's fine. And I think that's something that I always carry with me from spending over 15 years there. I have multiple mentors, technical, for startup. I'm very lucky to have. Code AI is actually super lucky to have one of the founding member of Stack Overflow on our advisory board. So I ask him so many questions, and I think what's important is really to, like, there's this thing that you don't know, right? And I think, like, when I see myself like struggling between two decisions, that's the time I need to have a call or to catch up with a mentor.
I also have the two coaches, like the CEO coach and the sales coach, who were assigned during my the Alchemist days. Then also like our the investors as a kind of coach, right? So they have been seeing a lot of like a growing startup, and then I ask tons of questions on, when I face some challenges, how how the startups is solving those challenges. So yeah, definitely need someone to give the advice. Yeah.
yeah, I think on my side, like it's kind of challenge here in the Philippines ecosystem to actually like look for the type of mentors, especially that it's in terms of like how startups are relatively growing. It's not there yet compared to Singapore, compared to other countries. So I think I accepted that fact that it would be challenging to like look for specific mentors. And I think it's more of to be able to search your fellow peers and consult with them. And also I think we're part of the incubator here in the Philippines. They open up opportunities for us to like talk to a lot of people. So there's no specific mentors, but you can like talk to a lot of people, and they would definitely give you an insight that would probably be against on what's your head, or probably be on your side. And so like talking to investors would definitely give you, even if you're pitching with them, they would somehow like give you a perspective on how to do things. I take that as a constructive feedback that I can like relatively improve on the business aspect. I think for me, I learn a lot, like just by listening to podcasts, stories coming from founders in Silicon Valley. I learn a lot, and I think going to networking to events, also talking to like founders. Like I'm also like learning now from Rio and Herbie. So all of those like networking events gives me like a different perspective on things, and yeah, and hopefully, I think I also like try to reach out to several mentors on LinkedIn. So I just like have probably have a different face, and then I just message them and have booked on some like consultations with them. So I think there's the opportunity like open. You can like search people on LinkedIn, and sometimes you would definitely find a time to like talk to you.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Next question we have. Uh, okay. So the question is, how do you assess the headcount balance between business operations, product, and engineering? So I think the question is more about budgeting, like where do you kind of grow the company, at which stage?
Yeah, definitely starting from the projection, I think. So like what we do is like first of all writing the 1 to 2 years like the growth projection, and like what MRR would it become in after 2 years or something, and then like I calculate back to the headcount. Okay, so if we need to achieve this MRR, we need to have this like a number of like a product team, and as well as CS guys, and as well as like a sales, so to achieve this like a new booking and stuff. So like I think I don't feel like I'm taking a balance, but like just calculate. So starting from the calculation, but and then frequently review the plan. Then yeah, maybe like every 3 months or something, like a review the headcount, like actual like a hiring plan. But I think like overall headcount, like so like let's say hiring 25, like becoming the making the other team 25 by the end of this year. So that kind of total number wouldn't be that much changed. So I just like to make some like a tweaks between the okay, so I'm gonna put this budget into the product management more, or like I put this budget into the hiring the CS people or something like that. So yeah, I think that kind of process.
Nice. Hervé, Russ, do you wanna?
Yeah, so I think for us, if I ask, to me, this question is almost like, how long is it going to take if you ask that for an engineer, right? So the short answer is like it's a hard question to answer, and I think we live in a dynamic world. We need to adapt. Like making plans very long, it usually doesn't work. At least, sorry, in my perspective, it's very difficult, and you always end up like shifting things. So, I think how do you assess? Like based on what you need, right? And we try to do as many experiments as possible to get a sense of what we need, how long is it going to take, who do we need, and based on what, when we face the problem, then we're like, okay, then we need to find that person, right? That's how we do it.
Yeah, I think
Nice.
I carry the same approach as like what Hervey is sharing, that you need to like look it on an overall perspective as to like where do you think that talent would be needed. It's hard to do the estimates because again it's kind of changing from time to time, right? So if there's an increase, for example, of expected clients coming in, therefore you need to have an increase also somehow like on the engineering and probably some of the business associates as well. So I think it's a balance between overall business impact as to where do you want to focus on. And I think we hire based on the need itself.
Nice. Cool. All right. Thank you. Okay. Next question. We have. Okay. How do you compete with larger companies who are competing with you for talent? Google.
I'll take that because it's an easy question for me. Basically, if you want to work at a big company, then you probably don't want to work at our company. So we totally attract very different people. If you want to work at, I mean, I used to work at Broadcom, at Siemens. They're totally different people. Like it's like they want to be in a box. They don't. I mean, sorry. I think you want like something that's more structured, right? A startup, at least for us, for me, it's chaotic, but there's so much learning opportunity. It's how you grow the fastest, And not everybody wants that, and that's fine. But that's not the people that we want to attract. And then on top of that, like, you know, what we do at Code AI, deep learning, natural language processing, you know, processing millions and millions of lines of code with like an extremely small team, but a very talented team. You're not going to find that at a big company.
Nice. Okay, everyone's saying yes. Okay.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Google can have their own employees. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think just to add to what Hervé mentioned, I think it's definitely have a different people. I think we have experienced people jumping from bigger companies to to our team itself, and we realize that they're looking for a different organization. Because sometimes if it's a big company, they're relatively small in terms of like how they're seen. So sometimes people that we're attracting is sometimes that individuals who would want that they are listened to when they actually provide feedback. They are their efforts are recognized, and relatively that the organization itself provides support for their growth. So I think relatively different characteristics at some point in time when you compare the mechanics between huge organizations to like startups.
Yeah,
Can I add one more thing, Julius?
Yes, definitely, please.
All right. So hiring for me is very much like dating. So it's about a fit, right? It's not like if we don't hire somebody, it doesn't mean that that person is bad. It means that we're looking for different things. And yeah, so I mean, yeah, if you're want to work, if you're thinking about a big company, then we're looking for different things, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah. So I'm always like when I do hiring process, like I'm asking the candidate like what they are looking for, then like what we can provide, and if we could see the fit, you know, we can work together. So like yeah, I totally agree with Harvey.
Totally makes sense. Nice. All right. Okay, next question. Reward and recognition. So how do you balance between companies' limited resource, unlike Google, and make sure that your engineers are rewarded accordingly?
I think from our side, it's relatively evolving as the company also grows. So sometimes it's easy like to have a pizza party when you're small, right? I think that's a common setup. We have a new client, let's have a party. We have released our first product, let's have a pizza. Let's have a pizza. But I think as an organization going, you need to explore different ways on how you can reward and recognize people. I think right on our side we're using different technologies now on how we can recognize all about the great works coming from different segments of the business. It's hard if you're already growing as an organization, you need to have that specific aspect that all of the work that sometimes you're not seeing anymore gets recognized but by their supervisor or their manager. So we need to like create and craft that specific process to make sure that we still do what we do when we're small. We still need to carry that values when we're small, and that we need to also like carry that value as we grow the organization itself. So we're utilizing a lot of tools, and we know that this will be constantly changing as the organization grows. So I think we need to stick to what we have been implemented successfully and what our people have been feeling when they're relatively part of a small team. And as this team continues to grow, we need to still make sure that we protect that aspect of carrying that values all throughout the organization.
Nice, thanks. Okay, I'm trying to. Okay, go ahead,
Do you want me? So
Please,
quickly, for us, it's you know, the 3 Ps: people, product, profits, in that order, right? So absolutely, our staff, our team is the most important. By the way, don't show this to our investors. It's the idea here is that you know, obviously we don't have a limited budget, but I think like we try to do things, and I think like having a team that is understanding of what working in a startup with limited resources means has been fantastic. I see our team sometimes like cutting down services on GCP or AWS just to save a few bucks, and like I love that they understand that. So you know, it comes back to that trust aspect. I think for us in terms of rewards, I think having ownership of what you do and making your own decision, and again, it comes with the autonomy of trust, is an incredible reward. I mean, we hope that it's not the only one, but that's in itself is a big part of why people join us, is that they have full control, their ideas matters, what they say matter, the suggestion matters. And the third thing I would say is that, as founders, me and Dr. Misha Philipov, we try to give back as much as possible. We have internal training that we usually do for speaking events, or sometimes we get paid for, and we give it completely free, and you get like this incredible, we try to give back and have that mentorship aspect that I think a lot of our team really enjoys, and that's one way to like do it without spending too much money. Yeah.
Nice.
So, can I add one more thing? So, so for the recognition, like what we do is like we do the kind of company-wide demo time every week. So like for the product team to like show what they have built to like all the employees, so that we can praise like what they have done, and then also we kind of get excited what we can deliver to the customers. So I think that works pretty well for product and engineering team.
Nice, makes sense. Yeah, that's a good way to actually see, what they're doing. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I think we have time for 2 more questions. Wow, time flies. What the hell? Okay, next question. Harry Zuan. Hi, Harry. Hello. So his question is, have you seen conflicts between teammates? Ooh, and how do you resolve them?
Yeah. So yeah, I actually talked just a little bit earlier. Yeah, so like I saw a little bit conflict between the CS people and then the product engineering people. So like as an example, I just earlier mentioned like a for the product team, engineering team is like looking at building the new features, while the CSP team is looking at helping the existing customers. So like there's a kind of conflict direction between the building the new feature and the supporting the existing customer. So supporting this existing customer is kind of fixing the bug and fixing the problem, right? So that's why there's a conflict. Like they both thinking they are helping customers, but like an engineering team is like thinking of helping the new customers, while CS people is helping the existing customer. So yeah, that's why. So that's where the management should come in. Then so I kind of like take the kind of leadership to, okay, so let's save the existing customer, not the new customers. So like let's focus on fixing the bug first. So like sometimes the management people need to get in there to set the direction and then decide what to do and what not to do. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay,
I can chime in.
yeah, yeah.
I can chime in. I think usually when conflicts happen it's when the goal wasn't clear, or the goal is not clear, right? And I think like again, when it comes to autonomy and freedom, don't I give my teams problems to solve, not solutions. Like, this is the problem, like find the best way to solve it. Like I don't want to get involved because I think it's a great learning opportunity for them, and honestly I want to be able to go on vacation and not have my phone ring. So it's about autonomy and freedom and have clarity. It's not always easy to have that clarity, especially as I mentioned, as a CEO, the problems aren't always clear. But when you do have a problem, like, just restate the problem. It's about fixing the problem, not what your solution is or what this technology does or what you prefer. It's about solving the problem and helping the customer.
Yeah, I think in terms of the conflict, from what I've experienced so far, there are just two main key factors that I was able to understand. First is like there's a misunderstanding on both sides, but we're not able to provide context properly. And in terms of also lacking trust to one another is one of the key factors of having conflicts. So I think it's good to have healthy conflicts because sometimes it gives you a different perspective of things. But before you can actually reach to a point that you're going to have a healthy conflict, you need to trust the people, right? So it's like we're good friends, or like you have a quarrel with your friend, but at the end of the day, you're still friends, right? Still in the same context in the office, that if you trust how they work and there's a conflict between how you do things, and at the end of the day, you will be resolving that conflict, right? But if it comes to a point that really there's some relatively issues beyond that you cannot handle, so sometimes I go jump in and figure it out that it's a misunderstanding on both sides. I think usually I continuously push that you need to provide context every time as to like why are you saying things that way and why did you derive that decision. It's possible that the other side doesn't understand your shoe because you weren't able to provide context, right? So usually it's because of those two, like lack of trust and misunderstanding because of like lack of context on what you're sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay, we have our last question. Waiho is asking, what key factors you think are essential for establishing a work culture that aligns with your organizational vision?
Maybe keep mentioning about our values. Yeah. So we've set the other three values like solve burning needs, aim high, stay grounded, ownership and collaboration. So I always try to mention about are you solving burning needs, or like which ownership do you take or something like that. So I think like one of the key point of like establishing the value and the culture itself is like keep mentioning like same things, and then like let them know like what is important. So like with like a lot of ways, like one thing is like I'm keep mentioning it, and then also we do some kind of workshop to understand more onto like what will be the two do's and don'ts for the align with the values. So like for doing the workshop to let them understand deeply. So yeah, we try to do like a kind of do a lot of aspects, and yeah, so try to let them understand the values and culture deeply.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Rio said. This also our practice that that's also like what I've been doing. That I need to, even if people would tend to like, I know them already because I constantly like reiterate what our values are. I think
Yeah.
it's also like a good reminder for them to like embody that value. But again, it's also the actual implementation of that because sometimes people tend to memorize it but they don't actually embody those value. That would be
Mm.
a wrong implementation. So I think what we're doing now is to make sure that it's also part of the evaluation of performance,
Mm.
and also the way that we hire people. Also, there's an assessment on that. So there's an assessment of all of those values across when we hire, and we also evaluate people, and we also like kick out people if they're actually not living that value. So it's all of the it's how we hire, we kick, and how we relatively like increase or like, measure performance of all of the people in the team.
So I'll say it's culture is probably one of the hardest thing that you can do. And if you get it wrong, don't feel bad. It's extremely tough. I don't even know if we're doing it right. I will say that I will definitely echo what Ralph said. It starts with who you hire and how do you reward those behaviors. I think with culture, it's about constantly reminding people what you stand for. It's as much as possible. It's about motivating. It's about making it easy for people to adopt those cultures. So sometimes it's in the tooling, right? And it's about training people. So like if you want to adopt certain cultural aspect or a certain behavior, then you need to explain basically why, make it easy, and also show how you can show people how to adopt it.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. We do have a lot more questions, but time is not on our side. But it seems that it's something that many of us here in Singapore would like to listen more to what you all have to share with us. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared. I think it's very very insightful as always. It's so good to see you all. And we're transitioning to our next segment. And once again, thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Rio and Hervé. Thank you so much. And hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you,
guys.
Julius. Thank you, GDG.
Bye.
Thank you. So we're going to have, let me see, about 2-3 minutes of break. so that we can kind of stretch and wake ourselves up and stuff like that. So until then, we'll be back very, very soon. See you in a while. All right. Time flies. Okay, now we have the second segment. Once again, oh, by the way, okay, maybe let's talk about it later. So it's about time for us to introduce the next set of speakers, where we are going to talk about how to scale your engineering careers. Now with the panel of senior engineers from pretty much notable companies here in Singapore. So let's start off with introducing Henry from Google. Hi, Henry. How are you?
Hi, Julius. I'm good. I'm good.
Super good to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit more about Google? Because I think not everybody heard about Google and what you do there.
Yeah, I heard it's an alien company from somewhere out there. My name is Henry. So basically, I'm working in Google Cloud Singapore. So my role is at the professional services team. So what I do is basically helping the strategic customers to adopt Google Cloud Platform solutions and make them successful in doing that. Um, During my spare time, I also host a podcast called Tech Lead Journal. So you can see the links up there on my virtual background. So if you're interested in technical leadership or technical excellence kind of topic, feel free to check it out. Yeah.
Super cool. Nice. Okay, we have our next panelist, not a stranger. He's been around for so long. Hi, Wayan. How are you?
Hey Julius, I'm doing good.
Okay, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about what you do, where you work
Sure.
and stuff?
Yep, so I'm a staff software engineer at Harbor. Previously, I was serving as a tech lead at Rakuten Wiki, and I'm currently also concurrently a Google developer expert in Google Cloud. Yeah, so yeah, very happy to be here today.
Super cool. All right. Next, we have Ronald from Shopback. Hello.
Hello, Julius. Hi, everyone. Yes, so my name is Ronald. I'm engineering manager at Shopback. So Shopback is a reward and discovery platform for users to earn cashback, right? So when you shop online or you dine in at a restaurant, then you can earn cashback. So my team is handling Shopback Go. We're handling the in-store shopping experience. And in the past, I've had experience working at many startups at different stages, even building a team from less than 20 engineers to grow it more than 5 times of that, and also across multiple tech hubs. And from career perspective, I've been a developer, been a senior software engineer, tech lead, even evangelist, directors, and now become engineering managers. Yeah. Looking forward for the panel talk, and thanks for having me.
Super cool. All right. And last but not the least, once again, Michael is unfortunately not able to make it. But we have someone equally good looking. Hello, Jeannie. How are you?
Hi everyone. My name is Ginny. So I'm the principal software engineer at SP Digital, helping to build and test and quality infrastructure and tools to help people, test and produce and ship high quality products better and faster. And prior to that, I was actually engineering manager in Carousel, mostly looking into mobile. And most of my career was actually in mobile and building web APIs.
Cool. All right. So same drill, everyone. You can write your questions in the comments in YouTube Live. And while we get things heated up, we are going to ask some of the pre-submitted questions. But before that, we have someone who asked a very interesting question. Can you give us more shop back? I think Ronald is the expert here. What do you think?
I think he meant give more cashback, is it? Well, if you shop more, then you will get more cashback. That's given, right? So, and our team is working tirelessly to make sure that happens. And a little bit of facts that we have given like more than hundreds of millions of cashback to our users. So that's something that we can proud of.
All right, cool. Okay, now we ask the other questions. Okay, so one of the submitted question was actually, looking back, what are the things that you wish you knew before that you knew now?
Let me start. Okay. So I started my career probably about 14, 15 years back. It's like very long time ago. During that time, I kind of knew that technology would always keep changing. It was quite rapid during that time even. During that time, it was about Java, .NET, and some JavaScript frameworks around. But little that I know, maybe 15 years forward, right, the technology pace is even faster. So probably that is one thing that I kind of like surprised in my later years, and having so many technical things that we need to learn about, know about, or even experiment about, right? So probably, yeah, during that time, if I wish I knew that I would be in this kind of position, maybe I'm not in IT anymore.
That hurts. Anyone wants to follow up?
Maybe I'll continue on that. For me, it was a very different perspective. I think after joining as an engineer, I think maybe as a more junior engineer, I didn't do this one thing, which was sort of giving back to the community. And by community, I'm referring more towards like the tech community in terms of participating, in the conferences that were being organized. Every year there's so many conferences being organized, be it paid or free. Online conferences as well. In fact, right now, I would say in the current situation, there's so many online conferences that are going for free, so much knowledge going around as well, campaigns, meetup groups, and all that. And that was something that I think even coming from school, I didn't really capitalize on those things. And I think when I found out about, there's so many events you can participate in, can learn a lot more, not just being a better developer, learning from other people in the same field, but also, non-technical skills as well. Picking up from other people, within all these different meetup groups and conferences. of course, yeah, networking and meeting more people, that's definitely also a bonus in there.
Nice, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, can I add to that? Oh, sorry, Jenny, you want to go
Yeah, I
first?
actually wanted to echo what Wei Yan said as well. I think when we start out with career, it's very easy to actually just think like, oh, is everything all just technical only, and it was actually much later on that I realized, the importance of other things like networking, building, engaging with the community, being out there, and also some other soft skills like managing other people, managing stakeholders. I feel that the more senior you become, the more important these things become, right? How you actually manage other people rather than how good you are actually at doing technical things.
Yeah, I think when I first started my career, where I go into this career is because I really like to code, right? So I like to build stuff, and software engineering allows you to build many things that you have, anything that you have in mind, right? It's unlimited. But as I go into the career, the professional career, then I realized that coding is not everything, right? It's important, but it's not everything. So like Wei Yuan mentioned also, there's a soft skill part. There's other things that we need to have to be able to successful in this career.
Cool. Looks like moving from engineering software to engineering humans. Um, actually, that now that having said, Kwan Hua seems to be asking a very similar question. So, he's a mobile application developer. What do you think? Should he become a solution architect or go to management?
Okay, maybe I can actually take this question because I have a similar trajectory. So I also started out actually as a mobile application developer. So I started when pretty much when iOS the App Store first came out. So that was being back in 2008. Noticed that there was a gap there, so I did the very crazy thing of trying to run my own consulting company, building iOS apps. And after that, I moved into a company where it was just like mostly building iOS apps, building APIs to support those mobile apps, or integrating with existing systems. Sometimes you have to build a mobile app, but the API backend is some really legacy system like Delphi. So those are very interesting challenges. And what I've realized is that if you want to be a successful mobile developer, it's not enough to just focus on just building iOS or Android apps, or focusing on architecture. I think it's important to also look at the broader picture and understand the other systems that you will need to actually work with, integrate with. Like all the API systems, backend systems, and so on. And all the other tooling ecosystem. I think quite often I see a lot of mobile developers, they focus so much on just the mobile component, that even when they have to do things like modify the mobile CI pipelines and things like that, they need to go to somebody else for help. So these are things that complementary skills that will actually help you to scale up. Eventually, if you were to look to become a mobile architect, a solution architect, or even pivot to a different kind of role within the mobile space, like mobile APIs, or even management role. These are skills that will actually be very, very important for you to actually pick up and know.
I think this question is very relatable to me, right? So I started my career as a Symbian programmer. So I built Symbian apps during the Nokia time, right? Hopefully you guys know what is Nokia. so a few of the fights is like, I really love the mobile application development, right? And until now, I still do mobile application development as well. I work closely with the mobile team. And my advice is you need to be really open-minded, right? Even when I did the Symbian programming, building for Symbian, I also open mind to learn other technologies. I moved from Symbian to J2ME, then to Android to iOS, and then and now we have Flutter, we have React Native. So all those things you can learn and then you can enhance your knowledge on that mobile application development itself. Right? At the same time, you also need to be broad, right? So mobile application is not the only part of the product that you build, because there are other aspects like the backend itself, right? Like the data pipeline itself. There are many other aspects, and please also learn on those broad areas so you can enrich yourself and becomes you can have a proper decision where your career wants to be.
So for me, I look at a different perspective. So I don't see it as a just mobile application developer. I think almost any technology, you can just replace it, right? So the way I see of this question is more about career growth, and it seems that the fundamental question is either being an individual contributor, honing more and more technical skills, or moving to the management role, right? So for me, I think as a senior engineer everywhere, right, you will always have these questions. My answer will be, if you look back to the actual question itself, deep down, I think everyone should assess whether you are looking for management role just because of the status, or it seems to be something that is highly valued in the society, or is it something that you really aspire, that you want to manage people, dealing with communication skills and things like that, right? So the way I would see it is that, like, don't see it just like from a status point of view. Yeah, probably as a manager you will probably earn slightly more within this region, but there are equally a lot of good opportunities as individual contributors as well. So I've seen a lot of seniors becoming just individual contributor, and they can equally be highly valued as well. So I think that would be my perspective to answer this question.
Yeah, just to mirror what Harry mentioned as well, in that it's, the question itself, also answering more from the career growth perspective, how should I put this? Like, okay, maybe to add on to that, I think one thing I would say, like for your own career growth, understanding, as what Henry mentioned, understanding what you really want, taking the time down to actually think, do you want to be more of an individual contributor, or maybe being more of a technical lead, or maybe more in the management direction, so non-technical. And I think another very big complement to that would be to, I think, like in the last panel that we had just now, they talked about mentors. And I think that's one very big thing that you can do, right, to sort of push your career trajectory forward. Look for a mentor who have like maybe very similar values to you, and a growth that maybe you also want to aspire to be in, and basically sort of emulate and learn from the experience of your mentor as well as other people in the field.
Cool, thank you. We have another question from Hairi Zuan. Have you encountered burnout from your job? And if you have, how do you deal with it?
Take leave.
Well, I can start. I used to work in a startup before for almost, I think, around 3 years, more or less. So yeah, I did experience burnout. I think it's probably a heavy burnout, I would say. As you all probably who have worked in startup before, like the working hours probably can be demanding if you don't control yourself. Like be conscious about the time that you spend there. I think to deal with burnout, the first key thing, in my opinion, is to realize that actually you do have a burnout. Because sometimes when you are in the moment, right, you seem to like don't actually understand that all these things that you are doing, right, is causing you a lot of either like psychological problem, right, or mental health issue, or just loss of energy and other kind of a motivation. So that's the first thing, is to understand that you are actually encountering this burnout, or it could be from other people's feedback as well. And second thing, I think I would also suggest that you should find other things besides work, be it either like your hobby or even just different kind of projects. So let's say you have a side project building mobile apps, for example, doing something is just different than what you're doing normally from day-to-day job, right? I think that would help. And having some kind of social network, either with friends or communities like this, right, going to talks, I think that tends to help me as well. And lastly, if let's say this is for me, at least in a startup when you encounter this over and over again, and it seems like it won't change due to the demand. So yeah, find other jobs. That's is like also an applicable exit route.
Okay, looks like our other three engineers were never burned out in their careers. Thank you, Henry.
Wait, I can add on
Okay,
to
okay.
that. Like I do. I mean, I have faced like minor phases of burnt out as well, and I think it's as what Henry mentioned. Yeah, you know, you just sit down one day, you realize that yeah, you're really tired. There's even though there's maybe like 101 things that you know it's on your schedule to be done, you don't have the motivation to like push through all of them. Uh, and I think that's when you really have to identify. Like just now, I mean, I joke in a way saying, you know, take leave, but I'm really serious in saying that, in the sense that in today's, not say today's society, but, you know, in this year alone, because a lot of us are working from home. And I know like some really good engineers, some very hardworking engineers who, because of this working from home thing, right, you know, people start working maybe let's say 9 a.m. and they'll work all the way until midnight because there's no transition anymore. You're not traveling to work, you're not traveling home. So essentially your home becomes your workspace and you don't break out from that more. And it's so dangerous, which is why I think even from the company's perspective, from like, you know, person perspective, when we talk to each other, when we tell people take a break, like, you know, take a few days leave. Sometimes even if you have, let's say, nothing planned, you don't necessarily need a holiday. Just take a few days leave, you know, recharge yourself. Find if you have hobbies on the side, you know, indulge in those. And get yourself, understand yourself within a period so that you recharge yourself before you get back to work.
Yeah, I think the other thing to remember also is that, you know, while you still may be able to solve a problem, while you are stressed or burnt out or, you know, you're lacking rest, I think it's important to acknowledge that, you know, you may actually come up with an even better solution that you might not realize if you actually properly rested. So I think rest is very important. Taking time for yourself, you know, some me time is actually very important. Mental health is actually very important as well. And you know, for me, I deal with it by actually having hobbies that doesn't even involve any sort of technology. You know, I just go outside, go for a run, do some journaling on paper and pen. You know, just so that I can have some space to decompress. Yeah.
Just maybe one
I
more
think that-
one more add on to the burnout thing, right? I think it's easily for many people seeing burnout as a kind of like a badge of honor or something like that. I think there's really nothing great about having this burnout. So it's best that you avoid it altogether rather than, you know, trying to have this badge of honor. You know, like I'm burning out myself. You know, I don't think there's nothing to be proud about that.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, Ronald, go ahead.
Yeah. So coming from startup, so, definitely there are some times that we need to push ourselves to be able to deliver what we need to deliver, right? But to me and my team, we try to balance that. Yes, there is a crunch time, then we need to push ourselves, but we try to balance that to go back to the normal state, and also have to reflect what was happening. Why did we need to do that burnout or additional effort that we need to add it? So by doing that, we can become better, and hopefully in the future, we don't have that burnout anymore. And to me and my team, I always try to take leave. I always allow my team to take leave anytime they need. And then for me, I will do other things that I like. So I like to code. I like to do my side projects. That's how I usually deal with it. So I will try to stop doing the work-related stuff and do other things, or maybe play with my kids. That's also fun.
Super cool. Thank you. Reiki asked a very good question. So the question is, as a chemical bioprocess engineer student who is self-learning software development, as probably many of us did when we were younger, how can she step into a software development career? Like
Okay,
looking
let
for
me.
a job?
Okay, yeah, Ronald, go ahead.
Okay, so I think based on my experience, I also have a team member who's not coming from CS background. So there were lawyers, there were coming from electro, not from the software engineering itself. And how they do it is many things. There are some by chance, some they really wants to learn. They go to the what is it? The fast track education. I don't know what's the term, like General Assembly. Then you can go
Boot camp.
yeah,
Boot
boot
camp.
camp.
Boot camp,
Correct, boot camp. You can go to boot camp. You learn. Then after you graduate, you go into the professional field, and then you learn from there, right? So that's one way. For myself, what I suggest is you can learn by yourself. So I think computers, software engineering, software development itself is one of the self-learned skill that we can do. We can learn by ourselves currently. So that's another benefit. There are many resources out there. You can also join the informal education. You can watch from YouTube. You can go to GDG, go to the seminar. You learn new things. You apply it yourself, right? So that's a one way to start your career.
Yeah, the way I would see it is that obviously the first thing is this can be done. I've seen numerous people, just like Ronald mentioned as well, right, who switch career from some other domains, which is not technical at all. And this can definitely be done. There are so many resources, either free or paid, that you can go through. My only advice would be, as we all know, software development these days, involve a lot of things. So many technical things that you need to learn. First of all, the fundamentals, the basics, but also the so-called the accessories, right? The frameworks, the platforms that you choose, right? And things like that. So my only advice would be just to carve a niche, find a focus area that you want to start with. Don't start with so many things, because as someone who didn't start from the technical background, it will be very difficult if you try to, compress everything within a short of time, right? So you can pick a niche, either like, for example, mobile developer, cloud developer, web developer, or things like that, right? That itself is plenty enough for you to focus on. And, going through all these courses, finding people, like-minded people who have been in the industry and learn from them, I think it's also great. Building portfolio on the, on GitHub, probably share what you have built and things like that. And I mean, the last thing is you just have to give it a try, right? Just apply for the job and see where you are at this point in time. Will there be any companies who call you and want to have an interview with you? That itself probably is a good indicator whether you are ready to actually switch to that role completely.
Cool.
Maybe I'll chime in a bit on the bootcamp side of things. So because I've helped to mentor some of these bootcamps as a volunteer. And I think one thing I would like to add is that, so just to solidify like some of the reputation of some of these bootcamps, which is that they are quite effective. I've seen really impressive engineers who come out from these bootcamps. Some, I may even say their skills might be even better than the engineers who come out from, let's say, the formal education track, from a university out there. But I think the one thing that I noticed from all of these graduates from these boot camps that I thought were really good was the determination and the motivation. They knew what they were going for. They really wanted to enter the industry. And because of that, it's because of that attitude that actually drove them to the success. It's not because of like all these individual tools along the way. Like I think on the other hand, I also know like people who are not from boot camps. Basically, there was this one graduate from architecture, not software architecture, but building architecture. This person was really good at software engineering. She picked it up herself in her own time. She went to work at a university first as a software developer there, and then after that to another company that I worked at before. And one thing that I found out, like when I first interviewed her, was that her basics were really, really good, even though she didn't went through the formal track. So I think just to solidify what Henry also mentioned, the basics, make sure you take care of the basics when you are also going through like all these online courses as well. I think those are, like for companies, right? Nowadays is that, in fact, I think a lot of companies are more liberal and they don't, ensure that, you must have like some sort of like, second upper class in some university, you must have some bachelors and all that. But they will look out for things like, through the engineering questions, do you understand the basics? Do you know like the problem that you're solving, right? Are you creating like an optimization problem? There's some performance issue there. And I think like through your own self-study, making sure you have your basics down, having this knowledge there, I think you'll be able to do quite well. Yeah. So I hope that boosts a bit of confidence as well. Like I think if you have the motivation to go through this, to learn about all this knowledge yourself, you definitely, I think one day you'll be able to make it.
Yep, and from a hiring manager perspective as well, I think for me at least, I've hired a few people who actually come from non-traditional backgrounds, career switches and all that. I think one thing this, like what Ryan said, one thing a lot of these people have in common is really, they really know what they want. They have a very strong determination. And for me as a hiring manager, when I go through the interview with them also, I also look at potential. All right. I don't look at technical skills alone because I believe, and this is true regardless of whether you are, you came from a traditional CS background or non-traditional background. You're always going to have to learn new things. You're going to always to have to pick up new skills. So how curious are you? How well are you able to pick up, all of these things? How open are you to being taught? I think also quite important.
Cool, thank you. And if you're still discouraged, just a reminder, Hairisuwan graduated as a chem engineer. And what is he now? A Google developer expert. Ooh, super cool. All right, thanks for asking. We have next question. Waiho, hello. So his question is being busy with day-to-day work and also Google technology, and also technologies that are evolving so quickly. How do you keep yourself technically relevant?
Okay, I can start. So the first thing is that you need to know first what is relevant in the marketplace, right? Either through, like maybe for me, like I look at LinkedIn job posts, for example, what are some of the hot roles out there? And just looking at from the communities, right, what people are talking about, and also some of the news. Maybe if you subscribe to like Reddit or something like that, right, you can also kind of like see where are the trends coming. So after you know that, especially, right, you can pick the areas. Again, the key here is picking the areas that you're interested in, and try to read up, find the sources that like discuss more about that topic. And I think the key for any kind of learning of new things is just to spend time with it, right? There's just no way for you to just pick up any new skills if you don't spend time either like playing around with it, reading about it, or even talking to people who are experts in that area, right? So that will be my quick tip of how you keep yourself relevant in the marketplace.
I think
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think Google giving some swags for completing some of these learning courses also helps sometimes. I think recently there was a Majula GCP. That was a big motivator, but like I want that T-shirt, I want the stickers and whatever not. So you spend some time. So I just spend some time after work, just slowly go through. So props to companies that do that. But yeah, I think it's not enough. Sometimes it's not enough to just like read up. If you feel that you're going to potentially need something, it's probably good and important to just build something, do something with that technology that you're trying to pick up. Sometimes also, it's also a case of you just want to follow the trends, read up on some trends, but not necessarily go deep into it. I call this as broadening the areas of things that exist, right? You might not need it now, but you now know that you know now what you don't know, right? So you've gone from I don't know what I don't know to I know what I know, or I don't know what I don't know, and then should there be a need later for you to actually use that technology, you already know at the back of your mind, oh, this technology, this thing exists. Let me go and explore that thing then, because if you're trying to explore and learn everything at once, you're not going to achieve anything.
I think maybe to add on to what the current panelists have mentioned, mine might be a bit more on the controversial side, but I want to mention it anyway, which is to focus more on principles rather than technologies and frameworks. I think the thing is that in this industry, the technology being replaced is a eventuality. Like whatever you're using right now, if you look at past trends in previous decades, I don't know if some of you have used things like XAMPP before, XAMPP. Use that to run your own web server with MySQL and everything. I think nowadays, if you ask like some new developer in the field, like what's XAMPP, probably they never heard of it. Laravel probably is more on the lower trend now as well. So a lot of this like popular frameworks many years ago or tools many years ago will never stay in trend. Like it's an eventuality that will get outdated, and that's why I feel that as an engineer for myself, like across the years, the important part was actually to take note of principles. For example, things like, if I'm doing things like incident management, the experience that I gained from being able to deal with certain incidents, those will carry me throughout the years. But regardless of the tool that I'm using, like be it PagerDuty or something else, those can be learned on the fly as you, like, let's say you enter a new job, you use a new tool there. Yeah. So I'll say, very important, like learn more about principles, train yourself on frameworks, as you enter different roles. And also, I think part of what the other panelists have mentioned in regards to finding out information. So I think it's also important to note, like, what's your regular data sources. Like some of us like to read newspapers, the hard copy newspaper. Some of us like to read it from online. It is important you find out like what really interests you. For me, right, I'm not an avid reader, even though recently I've started reading more books. But I know that I'm not an avid reader, so usually I go for more Medium posts, or sometimes I actually I will look at the Google Cloud's release notes, which is a bit odd, but because it's part of my community role, so I actually do that. So yeah, it's important to find out what are your main data sources and those that you can actually kind of stick to like day to day, that you can just read it maybe for a few minutes and get yourself updated to the things going on in your field.
Okay, so I'll try to answer from different perspective also. So when me as a manager, so how do I keep my team knowledge of technologies relevant to the existing technologies, right? So how do I do that is I send my team to seminars or workshop. I share with them any new things that might be out there, ask them to take a look and explore the technologies, right? And from my side also, I give them chance to be able to implement that on the product that they built themselves. So that builds up their knowledge as a team, and when we grow the product itself. Another thing is we also do internal technical sharing. So whatever they learn outside there, they can share internally with other team members. Right. So hopefully that also internally as a company we grow, we also learn, keep relevant to the existing technologies out there.
All right, cool. Our Google developer expert is asking, code quality is sometimes a secondary thought when app teams are churning out features. So how do you balance between code quality and churning out features?
I think it's not true for this statement in a way, right? The way you question it like that, that means, yeah, you put code quality as secondary thought. If you come from a different perspective, saying that, code quality is like an important attribute of your system, right? Then you would not make it a secondary thought, because like churning out features, yes, you can churn out as many as possible, but in the future, who are going to maintain those, right? You will still keep on building on those features, right? So having a good quality, at least some kind of a baseline, what you consider as a good code quality is a must to have within the team, right? You cannot compromise quality because, yeah, you just want to deliver more features. I think this needs sometimes communication with either like your founder, CEO, or manager, or product owner, right? To make them understand actually code quality is one of the most important thing when you build a software, right? You cannot just keep on adding new stuff without actually thinking about the quality for the long term.
Yep, and I think there are also some tools that you can actually use to also enforce a certain baseline of code style, code quality, and all that. Things like Robocop, ESLint, and these are all automated, so you can actually plug that into your pipeline. So whenever somebody pushes a commit, it could be a post commit hook, and it just runs and say like, you've got these few violations, please go and fix this. And it also helps with the code review process, because then the reviewer doesn't have to spend time saying like, hey, this could you fix this thing, could you refactor this part, because these tools already tell you up front. So that's also one way to actually enforce some level of baseline quality.
Okay, looks like everyone agrees.
I can add to that. So code quality is always there at the top of our engineers, right? So from the code review process itself, it's already there. Showback is at 3 tech hubs. That means at least we have 3 different things, three different teams that have 3 different thoughts, right, on how the code quality should be. So code review process is there. We also measuring the code, the quality of the code. Simple as code coverage, we also have that, right? And then and if really the code quality is really dropping, I would say we take that as a tech debt, right? So when we have that, when we treat that as a tech debt, then we can either pay it in installment or we pay it in lump sum, right? So when we do the sprint planning, we can include those tech debts, technical tasks, and we put that upfront to the product managers as well, that we need to do this because of this reason. So that's how we maintain it, right? And then if we really can need to do this in lump sum at once, then we also need to highlight that to product managers, and we just have a discussion that this sprint is we're going to do that to pay that technical debts, something like that. Thanks.
Cool, makes sense. I think Harry's one has a follow-up.
If
Yeah, go ahead.
if I maybe can add on a bit about the code quality, right? I think I just want to maybe invite all the developers out there, right? I think we keep hearing these kind of questions from all over the world. As a developer, why should we have these questions over and over again, right? I think the key as well for a developer, if you're a professional, right, you need to raise this kind of awareness as sometimes, right? We cannot just be at the mercy of, you know, whoever that gives us these requirements, that we just need to churn out those within, I don't know, short period of time, right? So as a professional, we also have to create awareness that actually code quality and whatever other things, non-functional requirements of the system is actually very important. And you wouldn't want to see like a doctor outside, you know, like, oh, I just want to so-called touch patients as many as possible without actually, you know, adhering to like health, you know, safety and things like that, right? The same thing I think should apply to software engineer. And I wish that everyone has more, you know, either like courage to actually bring more awareness of these kind of principles.
Makes sense. Harry has a follow-up question actually. And the idea is how to push back redundant features so that you don't have unnecessary code bloat.
See, let me start with this. to push back a feature, right? At Showback, we have core values. So one of our core values is keep it real. So that means, right, if the engineers really feel that this feature is actually redundant, then we have a full say of saying that to the product manager, hey, this feature is redundant. This feature will cause this impact. So that conversation is always happening, right? So at least, even before the sprint planning, we also have this conversation. The product managers also brainstorm with the engineers directly on how this feature should be built, and does it make sense, right? And how can we build the technical excellence when we build this product, right, to make it future-proof? So I think to prevent this, the first thing that we need to do is to have that conversation with the product managers that this is the fact, right? Then what are we going to do about it, right? Are we still going forward with it? If you're going forward, then that means this, you need to accept this as a technical debt. Then we need to pay it somewhere in the future, right? But if we have time to let us to do it properly, then let's do it properly, right? So it's a matter of finding a balance as well between building the product and also having a good quality of the code itself.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I just want to look at this question from a different angle, right? Because I think in my opinion, right, nobody would want to build a redundant feature. Nobody would want to build a duplicates, right? Like, I think it's a given. Like, why would you do that unless like you completely new, you didn't know it exists before? So I would like to see it from a different perspective. Like as an engineer, you sometimes need to ask, hey, why do you need to build some kind of a redundant features, right? Is it for some purpose that I don't know about? It could be like A/B testing, right? It's pretty straightforward these days. Almost everyone wants to do A/B tests. A/B test itself is like doing the same thing in a slightly different way, right? So I think the key is to understand from that point of view, right? When they introduce these new features, do they have a good reason about it? Or if they simply did not know about the existing feature, right? It is our responsibility to actually ask that, hey, I think these features already exist. We built that maybe X months ago. Do you think that we can just leverage on that and maybe improve slightly? I think that would be my point of view of how to handle this question.
Yeah. I see from a perspective of like, what does the data show? What does the insight show, right? If you have analytics, right, what does your analytics say about, what are the areas or problem areas that we need to solve, right? And after we implement the feature, what does the data show after that? Has it actually shown any impact? I think these are important things to actually know. So as long as you know what is the impact of the feature that you're building, right? Then, it also helps you to actually push back if you feel that, that this particular feature is not going to solve the problem, or it's not going to solve the problem, or you feel that a different approach might be better to actually solve the problem. But without data, it's very hard to actually make these sort of arguments.
I think maybe to round up what was mentioned, I think like especially for startups, like some features that are usually presented, I think maybe this is also the context of a question being asked. Usually, maybe let's say for engineers, you might not understand the context of why these features were pushed in the first place. And yeah, it's very important to maintain the open communication, talk to your product managers, understand why are they pushing for that. I think sometimes it's not even PMs. Like I'm not sure if you guys have read like the Phoenix project, and essentially there's one part where there's this conflict between I think the VP of IT operations and the head of security operations, and basically it's head of security operations. So it's basically just throwing this big stack of paper telling them, you need to adhere to all these different security guidelines, and people are also asking back like, why would you need to do that? And essentially that conflict was there because they didn't communicate properly in the first place, to make sure that actually there are other ways of working around it. Maybe you have a data to show that, maybe you have context that the other party doesn't know. So it's important to maintain the open communication to let the other party know there are alternatives if you don't feel it's working, or maybe they have context that you don't know as well. Like, because we are not perfect humans, we need to understand why they want to do those things in the first place.
Super cool. All right. We have a question from Ivan, who's asking, how do you measure code quality? Oh.
There are multiple ways of how you measure code quality. The simplest one, I think Ronald already mentioned, code coverage. The amount of unit tests that you build to test the the input and output of the system, either at the functional level, class level, whatever that is. You can then build some kind of a testing pyramid, either like with integration tests, end-to-end tests, API tests, and things like that, right? You can also check about like code syntax, like using linter or something like that. You can also assess in terms of non-functional, which is like security, performance, and all other non-functional aspects. And I think the key here is to actually enforce it, right? Like Ginny mentioned, if you have a continuous delivery pipeline, introduce all these code quality gatekeeping checks inside your pipeline, so that every code that you commit, basically the pipeline will ensure that every gatekeeping checks are run and everything passes according to your standards, right? There are a lot of tools that you can just use these days. Most of them are open source anyway. So just pick and choose like what are the important code quality that you think are suitable for your system, and implement that as automated as possible.
Yeah, on top of the technical qualities, right? The technical metrics from the code itself. So we also measure. We can also measure from the product itself. So we actually, you can set up an SLO between the engineering team and your product team. What is the expected outcome from the product that you deliver, right? So that's a reflection of how good is your code, right? And we also cascading that into our KPI. So our KPI is reflected, defining what are the expected from the business perspective, right? So from the code becomes a product, and then that will affect your business itself. So that's another way to measure.
Maybe I'll add on by saying going in a completely okay. I agree with the what has mentioned so far, but on a different track, right? Talk to the engineers. Like I think it's usually when you talk to engineers directly, even without like some of the tools mentioned, right? Some of them intuitively they already tell you, okay, there seems to be something wrong with part of this project that we're working on. We're copying and pasting a lot of this code. Why can't we just move to a different, like let's say if I'm running on a Rails project, why can't we just put it in a one common utils module or putting out as a separate gem altogether? And usually a lot of this technical wisdom comes from like interacting with your team, having those, let's say if you have chapters or teams, right? Let's say backend team, have them come together and talk about, what can you improve on further? What are looking at engineering backlog and see, what are the depths that we have to go and clear those things. Yeah, so I think this itself, having that communication to see, do your engineers agree that your code or quality is there or not? I think that's important.
Yeah, and to add on to that as well, I think apart from just talking to engineers, talk to your support people as well. Because I think code quality, product quality is also reflective of code quality, and when we are building it, we're testing it. It's limited controlled environments. Limited number of users, with super highly controlled environments. You put it out in the wild, you've got like people with all sorts of environments, people who are not on 4G, they're using like Edge or HSPA Plus, or even God forbid GPRS, or they've got like phones that's got like small size, or browsers that are super old and outdated, and they don't have any way to actually like upgrade it, and then after that suddenly all these edge cases that were never caught in testing, never caught in development start popping up. So do talk to your support people as well. They will have a lot of stories to tell you.
Cool.
Maybe just to throw in one more thing, which is to measure your unplanned work. And this is a challenge that I'm actually facing right now as well, which is I think one of the, there's, again, I'm using the Phoenix project. Basically, there's 4 types of work, and the last type of work that's the least constructive is basically unplanned work. And that usually comes from technical debt. But that's the product of the debt they have accumulated over the years or over time. And that itself would be a very clear indication. It's not the direct measure for code quality, but it's the direct impact caused by the lack of quality. Yeah, so that itself would be what you want to resolve.
Cool. All right. Okay, we have a question here, one of the pre-submitted ones. So in Singapore, the question is, there are big companies, mid-size, and also startups. What recommendation do you have for engineers working in each type of these companies, and how long should they stay there?
Okay, let me start again. So, fortunately enough, I've been into all these 3. So I've been in big companies, mid-sized companies, and also startups, right? Some are local, some are MNCs and things like that. So my key learnings from all those experiences is that no matter what type of companies you are in, there are still learning points that you can have, right? It's not a matter that, okay, again, it's not like a badge of honor. Oh, I've worked in big companies, tick. I've worked in startups, tick. Right? But actually, the thing that you should assess is actually the growth. What have you learned from all those experiences, or what things that you aspire to learn from all these types of companies, right? It doesn't matter if it's big or small, because sometimes small companies give you more responsibility, gives you more freedom, and creativity can be built because of that, rather than in big companies, which are probably more constrained, controlled, hierarchical. There's even politics. And don't get me wrong, you can also learn about politics in big companies, right? And that is also a good skill to have. And I don't think there's any, 100% guidelines. Okay, you should work in this X companies for this X of years. As long as you see growth and you enjoy what you're doing, I think you can still continue, even if it's just one company throughout your whole career.
I think I want to add on a little bit to what Henry just said. There was a phrase that I came across quite recently. I can't remember from where, but I thought that it was actually quite good, which is, if you have worked for 5 years, do you have 5 years of experience, or do you have 1 year of experience repeated 5 times? And I thought that was actually very insightful. So, like what was mentioned before, if you feel you're still growing, by all means stay. If you feel that you're starting to stagnate, right, or you're still growing but you want to try or get onto a different challenge, right, then maybe then that would be a time for you to move on.
I think for myself, I would like to say, maybe I'll answer it in a bit of a millennial way, which is you do you, be happy, in the sense that the company that you're at, because all of us have different things that we seek for. Some of us seek for career growth, some of us seek for the increase of like promotions, some of us seek for the increase in knowledge. We want to gain more knowledge in this company that we are working at, be it in that specific field, like cryptocurrency and all that. And because all of us are so diverse in our objectives, I would say the important part here is to be happy, seek what makes you happy. But that said, of course, I'm also not encouraging like people to throw in their like resignation letter right away and like switch between jobs out there. Like with some moderation as well. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would like to add.
I think I agree with what you all have said. So, there's no how many years exactly, but just stay as long as you still feel growing and learning new things, and you still enjoy what you are doing. So that's it. Yeah.
Cool. All right. One of the pre-submitted question also is asking, what do you look out for in the candidate?
I'm going to go in very quickly by saying, for myself, when I'm hiring, I think yes, technical skills is usually something, part and parcel of interviews. But I think as covered earlier on within this panel, which is the potential of the candidate itself. Potential, not just referring to like whether this candidate is willing to grow and willing to learn, but also the attitude. Is this person someone that both willing to grow, but also someone who can interact well with the rest of your team? And as long as it sounds very simple, but as long as it meets a lot of these check marks, I generally feel that it's sufficient, so to speak.
When I first started hiring, I made a mistake of focusing too much on technical chops. In time, I've actually learned that attitude is actually more important. Coming back to the whole point about skills can be taught on and learned, I picked up, as long as you have the right attitude and the potential.
All right.
So from my side, I think definitely the core fundamentals, right? If you're hiring software engineer, you do want to see them writing code, right? You don't want to see them, building UIs, for example, like UX design and things like that. You want to have the fundamental skills of the core that you're looking for. Of course, like general cognitive ability, like how well you communicate, right? Your teamwork, I think it's very important. For every company, we are not like working in silos, right? Normally you would have teamwork. Communications is important. And how they express their thought process with you, I think that's also important, because you don't want someone like a genius in coding but actually cannot explain what they are thinking about or what they are doing, right? I think problem solving skills, like if there's any some kind of signs that you can see from the interviews, like whether this person is like proactive, trying to solve problems rather than be keep quiet and don't ask questions and things like that. All these are actually good signs for you to see whether a candidate is good enough or not. And I think probably if you look for managers, you see the leadership qualities as well, right? You don't want to hire a manager who don't inspire people or just bossy and things like that.
Yeah, I think for me, three things that I really look like. First thing is he needs to be a team player. So team player means communication and collaboration must be good. Another thing is technical skill and leadership, of course. So he needs to have a good technical skill, and also the leadership. How can they mentor? How can they initiate technical initiatives across the company, right, to other team members? And then last one, but all are important, equally important, is the deliverable itself, right? So how can they use those communication and collaboration, their technical skill to be able to deliver what they are building, right? Of course, in a good quality and on-time manner.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, cool. We have time for about one or two more questions. So there's recently a controversial question around this: trunk-based or Git flow? What do you think?
There's even GitHub Flow, which is not to be confused with Git Flow. Okay. I'll try to answer this in a more idealistic way first. Obviously, trunk-based development is the best because branching actually introduce some kind of overhead, either like introducing the divergence of a code base, and if it's long time branch, right, that actually will complicate stuff even more, and especially if more and more people working towards the same code base, right? And secondly, trunk-based development, if you pair it with the continuous delivery and you release it often, right, that will be the ideal case. But obviously, achieving trunk-based development is not easy. There are a lot of discipline that you need to build. There are a lot of fundamental knowledge about building software that you need to think about. For example, like feature toggle, do you have a good enough code quality test and things like that? How do you ensure that the code actually is like a standardized, right? You don't have different styles of people writing code. I think this needs to be assessed back to your team, right? And sometimes it's okay. You don't need to adopt the best practices that is ideal. You have to always look back at the team, the members, how comfortable are they in adopting the things. And once you stick with the process, right, be aware of how things actually progressing, whether it actually can be improved further, either like the workflow, sometimes it's communication or just know-how of tools and things like that. And then over the time, you can still aspire to achieve the ideals, right? It might be slow step and gradual, but I believe if you put enough effort and build more awareness, maybe one day you will achieve that ideals.
I don't think there's actually a right or wrong answer. I think it's really, depending on your team's preference. And also, I think equally important is whatever flow that you choose, make sure you actually have the necessary processes and tools to actually support it. So, like for example, you choose to go trunk-based and you don't have TDD, you don't have code coverage, you don't have automated tests. That's potentially very risky thing to do as well. Right. What I've seen in a lot of teams is that they start with something that most people are comfortable with, and then they just evolve the workflow over time. So it's not uncommon to actually see something that is maybe halfway between trunk-based development and Git flow, right? So it really depends on what makes the team productive, lah.
Cool. Makes sense. All right.
Maybe
Okay.
oh,
Please.
maybe I will just answer from a different angle, as in like if let's say you are technical lead of a team. Okay, so I'm answering more on the when portion of this, and I think the one question that I also ask myself sometimes is it worth it to do this now? And when looking at that, I think going back to tech debt again, if let's say proper monitoring measures are not set up yet, some of it might be a prerequisites to making sure trunk base is done properly as well, and you want to settle those things first, get those fundamentals in place before you consider trunk-based development.
Yeah, I think for me, right, it depends on your team, which one is more comfortable. And when you try to switch to one or the other, make sure you know what's the real benefit of doing that, right? Because that means you need to change your processes. There are some efforts needs to be done. Make sure it's worth it. And then I would also say if you are in one of these, then you also need to measure, is there any roadblocks or challenges with your current process? Once you identify that, then you can decide, you can have this discussion to switch to the other strategy.
Nice. Cool. Thank you. Okay, we have one last question. Invi is asking, have you found people in their 50s working in technology?
How do you know I'm not in 50s?
Come on, you're 21 years old.
Yeah, I mean, like short answer. Yeah, I've seen a lot, and especially in Google, you can see a lot senior engineers who are working as individual contributors, not necessarily managers, who can churn out good quality code. And yeah, I've seen it in real world as well.
I don't
One
have.
of my programming mentors, technical mentors, he's in his 50s, and he recently picked up and went into AI, um, into the AI field. So yeah, I've seen quite a fair bit. Yeah.
Personally, I have not, but in community events, I have seen engineers who are much more mature, older. You can see from the rest. Some of them might even be asking a lot more in-depth questions as compared to the rest. So you can see their experience shining out from there. So yeah,
Cool. Never too late to write your first hello world. All right. Yeah, as always, we are running out of time. But fear not if this is something that you enjoy. You know, we have Tech Lead Journal, who Henry is actually, hosting it. A very similar set of topics. And of course, subsequently in our future events, if it's something that you're very much interested in as well, please do let us know, and we'll have more of similar types of events. Yeah, thank you so much, Henry, Jeannie, Wei-Yan, and Ronald. It's such a pleasure to have you all here. Hope to have you again next time. But it's time for lunch. So before that, just to kind of quote unquote advertise upcoming stuff, we do have the next DevFest for Singapore, where we'll be covering Android. So we have Veronica from Korea, who's going to share with us some view binding stuff. We have JT, everyone knows JT, talking to us a little bit about Kotlin. And then we have our beloved Toru, who's going to talk to us about some new stuff from Google. Um, and then, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Please don't forget also that our friends from Women Tech Maker Singapore will be having their event this afternoon, along with Women Tech Makers in Kuala Lumpur. Well, they'll be having 2 hours worth of ML workshop with Galu. So yeah, that having said, thank you so much once again, and have a very, very good day. See you next time.
Thank you, Julius. Thanks everyone for the good discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.